Welcome to this week's podcast. It is Saturday, the 18th of May, 2019. And this week is the I don't know what I'm doing episode. I want to say that I started out the last week feeling like I had a game plan and then I knew what I was going to do. And May is the entire month is dedicated to prepping for the summer. So the first thing I did was I cut out all of the hexagons from the beginning of the year where I stopped hand sewing the hexagons for my temperature quilt. And it is a 7 hexagon flower for like a grandmother's flower garden. And I kind of ran into a roadblock because I don't really know what I'm doing. I've been asking friends and I had people looking at some of my hexagons and stitching, and I don't know. Sometimes, when you don't get a rounding applause on things, you feel like maybe there's something wrong with it. But there isn't anything wrong with it. It's the temperature. It records the high temperature of every day according to a chart. Now, on January, February, March, April, and into the end of April, beginning of May. Lots and lots of dark blue. Winter came late and it stayed long. And I found that if I did 7 into here and they're in a Ziploc bag, then I can make them a portable project. And I have prepped them all. I used a glue stick and I cut out paper for the templates, the paper piecing templates from cardstock, using my Cricut Maker, which is another thing. I don't really know what I'm doing with it. I'm reading directions and tutorials and I sit down and I feel good about it and then I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I did wreck one board because I did put the wrong mat and the wrong type of blade on there and it wrecked the board, but that's okay. I have extra and I'm good. But look, this is May. We are getting more colors. We're getting greens and yellows in my hexagons. They're all in a bag to go for the summer so that when we go to Highland Games, I can just put my little bag of hexagons, little pair of scissors, thread, and my needle. It'll be good to go. Hopefully by the end of the summer, I'll have all of the hexagons sewed together and ready to put for fall into the fall section of the quilt. And then I'm hoping next year to get it all sewn together as a grandmother's flower garden. But I used my Cricut and cardstock, and part of why I don't know what I'm doing is that I could have added a whole nother row and not wasted the whole 8.5, 11 sheet of paper. But the cool thing is I saved the paper that I cut out because I thought that would make an awesome template for some sort of art project, or I don't know, I'm working on a Shadowbox 3D mixed media project, and I'll talk about that later on why I'm jumping into something different. So I'm going to put my hexagon template down and try not to bend it, but I thought it'd be cool to show you. It's just really cool. I could paint it, I could put it in a background, I don't know, use it as a stencil. Those kinds of things are always fun to exercise and challenge your creativity. The other thing this last week I found that I don't know what I'm doing on is my makeup. I've been talking with my friend all the time about my makeup now for the last couple of months, especially, and if you're looking on YouTube, you'll notice I'm wearing bright red lipstick. But why is it the lighting dark around me? Well, it's raining outside, and if I have all the lights on, I'm so white and washed out in the color, all you see is talking red lips. It's very French, but it's not exactly the look I was going for. So I am wearing my eye makeup a little bit heavier, and I feel like I have a lot of makeup on for grocery shopping today. But it's really not a lot of makeup. It's just a lot more than what I'm used to. And I think that's where when you enter the zone where you don't feel like you're confident in knowing what you're doing, then you feel like you don't know what you're doing. My lips, I think they're a little crooked. Same with my eyes. I always feel like one side of my eye makeup is heavier than the other, and I feel like one side of my lip is a little fuller, like maybe just outside the lip line, and the other goes on the inside, and I look like I'm crooked, or I kind of have a Bell's palsy tick anyway in my face. But anyway, it's just, I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm watching all kinds of YouTube tutorials, and my friend Miranda Parker, I call her my friend because I've actually met her in real life. I mean, we don't hang out or anything, but her husband played Highland Games. He's still doing one game, I think, this year, and I might be able to see her. So we would chat back and forth, and I've watched her kids grow up. So she's a unique presenter and does a lot of education on makeup, and I would recommend, if you want to learn a lot about how to put makeup on, then you should call her. But I need to have, I probably need to have her help me color match a better foundation. I pick my natural color, and it's not good. It's just not good. What else have I done this week that I don't know what I'm doing? Well, I've been playing around with my larger ring. It's a metal ring, and I cast on a whole spool of thinner macrame cord. I want to call it thread, but it's not. It's not yarn either. It's cord. And I've been playing around with this idea of doing an arcing mesh, and with just a square knot, and you make like a mesh, and then as I'm tapering it down like a bandana almost, then I'm adding some square knots and some naturally colored beads. I don't know what I'm doing because I don't really know where I want to go with this. I've been surfing Pinterest. I've been looking all over on what I can do with these kind of hoops. I like the bohemian look, but I don't really want to add cabbage roses. I thought, do I want to leave it clean and simple, like just beads? Do I want to add succulents or something? Because I'm really loving the succulent craze right now, and house plants, and that's my next segue. So I don't know what I've been doing. I have been messing around with this 5-minute project now for nearly a month. It's just aggravating because I don't know what I'm doing. The sense of I feel like I'm floundering. I really don't know what I'm doing on some things. So when that happens, that's usually a theme of, there's a lot of things going on in my life where I really don't feel like I know what I'm doing. And some of it is we had someone near to us passed away. What do you say? I don't know what I'm doing there. What do you say that's helpful? I mean, I said, I'm sorry. It just feels so empty, doesn't it? Yeah. So that's been something that's been an ongoing, long battle that this person had with cancer. And what do you say to the family? What do you say? Except I'm sorry. And this will be the second or third funeral in a few months, and I don't like that. I don't do well in those kinds of situations. Who does? But I feel totally inept. I don't know what I'm doing. It's not something I'm very skilled at, I guess, and I don't have a lot of confidence that what I'm saying is helpful or right, because there's nothing worse than being a person who says something when you mean well, and then have it be the one thing that sticks in their mind is, well, that was really not a helpful thing to say. So, that's kind of, maybe that's being an introvert. You just get preoccupied over all of those things, and you get replaying all of those things in your head. Now, my husband is very good with this. He's going to go and support me and the family, but he's also very good at writing words. What do you say on the internet? Sometimes I'm like, sending love to your family. I put that. But my husband can write this beautiful paragraph about the person, and after watching Brené Brown's Netflix original, I've never heard of her before, believe it or not, and I watched it, and I'm like, this is all about vulnerability and courage, and she says they're both the same thing. I would highly recommend watching. Everybody's talking about Brené Brown's, I can't even remember what the name of the show is, but it doesn't matter. You'll find her on Netflix, as well as she has some free audio readings of her books on her website, and it's just her name. Look her up. She's got some fabulous little shorts on YouTube of her speeches, and she's a TED Talk person. And she is a sociologist who studies courage and vulnerability. And that's what I figured this last week, that I was bumbling around because I lacked the confidence to be vulnerable. Top it all off, my daughter broke her leg on Mother's Day. Now, she's an adult and has got 3 children, and I couldn't run down there and fix it right away. I'm kind of holding off in case there's something that needs to happen more medically as an intervention, but she got help. Her mother-in-law came, and, she is asking me questions and wanting to know, as a nurse, what to expect with a broken bone. And I'm going to tell you, I am not an orthopedic nurse, and I don't know what I'm doing. I look it up. We look it up on Google together. I go, I don't know. Let's look it up. I would expect A, B, and C to be normal. I would expect D to not be normal. Get a second opinion if you're not comfortable. And ask questions. And I think that's, kind of all ties back to something else that happened this week, is I had the last of my 1,000,001 doctor's appointments, and my doctor wanted to start me on a medicine that we didn't have a lot of time to talk about in the office. We were waiting on my lab results, and they came back, not any different where they were, so I was not surprised on, my glycohemoglobin or hemoglobin A1C. So he wanted to add another medicine. But something felt not right about that without asking more questions. And I researched it. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know anything in the type of nursing I do about the treatment of diabetes either. I'm learning and I'm looking it up and I'm becoming more and more educated on it. But one of the side effects was a condition I've already had, and I didn't know if it would make it worse, and that's thyroid cancer. So he's doing research and going to get back to me. So when I hung up the phone with them, I realized, this is really all about this courage, the courage to be vulnerable and ask questions because I don't know, and to take a risk, because it wasn't all that long ago where I wouldn't have asked a doctor for myself a question. I wouldn't have done that because, nurses take doctor's orders, right? You just take them. Occasionally, I would ask a question once I became confident in the type of nursing I do about medicines and treatments and what we're supposed to do. But overall, that's a risk. And it's a risk that means you have to be vulnerable to being told that was a stupid question, right? It's one of those ridiculous things that comes from adolescence, I think, of being afraid to ask a question. The week of, I don't know what I'm doing, I asked my friend, what about this lipstick? What about it? I just look at it and I'm like, you know what? I wouldn't wear this out in public, but I like it. I think it looks pretty good on me. I'll wear it. Don't really need to be afraid to ask questions, though, and say, hey, what do you guys think? Do you think I should wear darker lips for a YouTube video? Do you think I should go back to the all-natural look that, even though I was wearing a lot of makeup, looked all-natural? And be vulnerable and just know that there are going to be people who like certain things and people who don't. So being vulnerable and being brave. I have to say today I made a choice to be brave and stay home. I've been asked a lot to go up to the Relay for Life cancer walk, and my husband took his mom, who has breast cancer, and before I would make a decision out of, I don't know what I'm doing. What do you say to people as a person who had a very scary diagnosis, but the treatment is actually not as involved. It's not an aggressive type of cancer, but it is cancer. And I've had people who wanted to say, oh, you need to come up here and be supportive and do the cancer walk and do the remembrance for all the people in your life. And I can't do it today. Out of a very clear and courageous spot, I said no. It's not for me today. Maybe someday in the future I will, but not today. And it's just one of those things that to say these things out loud is not easy because it makes you vulnerable to be brave to say, I chose no, and it's okay. I asked a question, and it was okay. So that was my week of, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. And it was the whole being indecisive. It was the whole asking questions because over the last couple of years in my adult life, I have been scolded by people at work for asking questions. And I decided that being brave is also being vulnerable, and asking questions is okay. And it's okay to say, I don't know, but let's go look it up. So that's where I'm at this week. It's been a week of, well, how do you cope with that? When you're trying to do all of this difficult stuff. I dug out my macrame and made a few decisions. I'm going to put the beads on it. I also decided that I wanted to grow some more indoor plants because outside it is still only in the 50s and my garden is not growing big, so I can't do too much out there for growth and new life coming up from the earth. I find it so exciting, and I enjoy my perennial garden and I enjoy my fairy garden. But see, I felt like I didn't know what I was doing there because it's not growing. It's not coming along. I don't even remember where I planted things. So I looked for growth and new life in the house. So I didn't bring the plants for the video because the lighting, but the other part is I don't want to spill them on my quilt that I'm going to show you next. And the one thing I found was a treasure trove of plants in the hallway that were left by people 10, 15, some even 20 years ago, who I do remember working there when I first started. Yeah, I've been there that long. And they're in a public window, and they're doing very well. And there's a spider plant, which I'm going to take a cutting from later because I didn't do well with the spider plant I was trying to grow in water. And I found a jade plant, and it's an old jade plant. It's been there the longest. And there's a couple of like one that has an arrowhead shaped leaf that I like a lot. I'm going to try cutting on that in the future, but I'm doing one at a time. I like the jade a lot, and I've been watching With Mind and Heart, which is my daughter-in-law Renee's Instagram page, and she's doing lots of printables and coloring books and the mental health and stress management workbook. But she also loves succulents, and she's done a video on her Instagram Instagram TV, I guess they call it, IGTV, about how to grow succulents from the little leaves. So I looked at the bottom to see if a leaf had fallen off the jade, and I did find one. And it had a plant already, a little tiny baby started. So I took it home, and it's in a little tiny canning jar, the little tiny ones for jam with soil in it. And then I pinched off a calico leaf, which is in my office, and we'll see if I can start growing them at home. I am so ridiculously excited because I don't know what I'm doing with it. And this now I can change to, I'm very excited about not knowing. It's all an experiment. The things I'm doing in my quilting now, it's all an experiment. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And it's been so much fun. See, you can take that whole, I don't know what I'm doing, and let it weigh you down, like the first part of the podcast. But I'm going to tell you, I've been able to find, I don't know what I'm doing. And it's fantastic. It's wonderful. Gardening, I don't really know what I'm doing. But I realized it doesn't matter. I put some plants in the ground a few years ago, and they're growing. They're coming up. I have no idea where I put my hostas still. I don't know. But one or two are starting to poke up. I'm excited they survived. Some of the yuccas I moved, they might be alive. Not sure yet. They still look kind of dead. But there is signs of green in the leaves, so that's a good sign. It's exciting. It's an experiment. I don't know what I'm doing. And the rest of it is I also go to things that I know, like long arming, and I needed something to do that was going to be helpful and useful for somebody. So I worked on my Quilts for Cure quilt, and it's off the frame now. And I can't show you all of it, but I can show parts of it on YouTube, and there'll be pictures on the show notes. So I did a feather border, and you can see in the dark blue hearts, I did a paisley or little feather, and then in the lighter hearts, I did my go-to swirls, and then I randomly mixed it up. I did a little stipple in the background, and you can see how it all just turned out great. But the best part is I took a chance on a yellow thread with that dark blue border where you could see the feather in the border. But on the back, I was terrified. It's a solid navy blue. And it turned out. I can't believe it. It turned out. Let's see. I want to look at this. Oh, it was a huge risk. And I'm really happy to say I didn't know what I was doing with it. And it worked. Sometimes things work out fantastic. Sometimes not so much. But I was thrilled with how that really bright yellow, it's a middle yellow, and it's a bright yellow. It's not gold, it's yellow, and like sunshine, and it really stood out on that blue. And I just jumped in the free motion quilting with both feet and just did the best I could. And yeah, there's a few bobbles here and there. It's not perfect, but that's what makes quilting so much fun. It's a little bit imperfect, and people feel like they don't know what they're doing. I never feel like I know exactly what I'm doing when it comes to quilting. And you just take a chance, and sometimes it works out. Took a chance of hanging my felt circles in my living room window, and those who are watching on YouTube can see it way in the background. I hung everything up, and some of them are a little short. Good news is I still have some felt circles I can add and make them all the same length. And I've decided that round circles, and that is going to be my design theme with the colors. So things that I'm working on seem to all be circular or hexagon shaped, but the circles are so cool, so in, so now. And I might even try to do something circular in a quilt with applique. I said applique and collage. But I just love how circles are hot and they look good, and you can see that circles are infinite. And I don't know what I'm doing with all of the interior design, but I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot. So when you feel like you don't know what you're doing, I get a few things out that I've been working on. Make a few decisions. Maybe if I'm stuck, just try it. It'll turn out or not. It's okay. If I feel like I don't know what to say, sometimes you just say what's on your heart. And simple, I'm sorry. Can I help you? I'm here for you. I'm concerned. Those are sometimes all I can say. And sometimes when you ask a question, it is a big risk, but it's worth it. You're worth being heard. You're worth getting an answer. So watch Brené Brown. Yes, her Netflix little speech was an hour and 10 or 15 minutes. It's phenomenal. I think it's the condensed version of many, many books that she wrote. She's funny. She made it very, very relatable, and I totally enjoyed it. And it helped me figure out that I can be vulnerable and courageous all at one time. And it's okay to not know what you're doing, because nobody does. Isn't that the secret of midlife? We realize nobody knows, even in quilting, and I feel like I have more experience in that than many other things. So I would like everybody to look at my Instagram. I'm just thinking about what we talked about. But yes, on my IG site, I'll link and I'll put a picture. I'm going to have a quote come out this summer in in June, in a couple weeks. And they said that I can post pictures of it. It'll be in show notes too. It's called Show Me the Way. It's a modern arrow quilt that I made last year. And I took that quilt all over Northern Michigan in the fall to get pictures of it. And I'm like, some of the most beautiful pictures are ones out in nature with the fall colors. But, I knew it was going to be printed in June, so I had to try to find a not seasonal photo. So that will be a fun thing to look up and see how they print that magazine and stuff. I'm excited because it's a digital magazine, and it's a quilt pattern magazine. I'll have a link to the show notes for that. And I wrote an article that's going to be in Make Modern magazine in September. So that's a fun thing to look forward to. I'm working on finishing up this quilt for Cure Quilt and binding it because the quilt shop asked me to be part of 4 local long armors for their shop hop, that we're each going to take an hour throughout the whole day of the shop hop and do presentations on how to help your long armor by having your quilt prepared and ready to go. The tips and tricks about prepping a quilt to be long armed. That's a better way to say that. And I'm going to be brave. And I said yes to going to that. I love Delphine's Quilt Shop. It's right next door to my house, and I'm going to see all the people from one segment of the shop hop, and I'm going to be vulnerable, show some of my quilts, and show that I'm one of the only people who does a lot of free motion quilting and no computerized quilting. And so that's kind of a risk because a lot of people like machine quilting with the computer, and that's okay. It's just not what I do. Mine's just a little different. So those are a couple of things that are coming up and things that I'm working on. And I'm still sewing my pineapple quilt that will be part of a sew along with Fat Quarter Shop. And for the rest of the weekend, I'm going to watch Quilt Market on Instagram and see all of the new things that are coming out and be inspired. I'm also being inspired by gardening, and I'm also being inspired by actually art and watching it on Netflix and stuff because we don't have an art museum close by. So it's been pretty cool doing all of the things, both the hard things that I don't know what I'm doing and taking chances and finding out I really like my crazy curtain made of circles in my living room. I really like this yellow thread on this quilt, and I took a big chance and I wore a bright red lipstick, and I might leave it on and go grocery shopping in it. Yeah, we'll see. I would like everyone to have the most fabulous, wonderful week, and quilt on, everyone. Welcome to My Creative Corner 3, a podcast about quilting, creativity, crafting, and life in my northern town. Come back weekly and we'll chat about all the things that I'm working on. My name is Vicki Holloway, and welcome to the podcast.